This is Synthesis TV, keeping you on the edge of technology and business.
It's actually a pet peeve of mine because I spend my life feeling guilty. Why? What am I talking about? So I go to a park somewhere and I don't have cash anymore. I've gone from being this guy that would always have to have cash on them to never having cash. I don't know how to pay car guards or security guards, to tip people, even at weddings. It's time. We need to move to a functioning cashless society. Well, we're definitely on the road, and we wanted to understand a little bit more about that. Joining me in the studio, Pierre Aurel. He's the managing executive at Halo. Jonathan Jacobs, product manager at Halo. Welcome to Synthesis TV.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So there's no doubt if somebody like me has moved already to a place that I don't carry any cash anymore, it's certainly become very much part of our world, hasn't it?
It has, but it's not widely adopted as widely adopted as we think, right?
Right.
So I think if you're looking at numbers statistically, more than 80% of all purchase transactions in South Africa are still cash.
Okay, we're talking South Africa now, right?
South Africa specifically. We are obviously moving towards this digital economy where everybody's using their phones, Apple Pay, Samsung Pay to make payments, and the other things that are developing in market. But I think we underestimate how much cash is actually still in circulation and the power of cash. You know, it's got tangible benefits that often digital doesn't have.
Okay.
So, you know, I think I'm completely cashless. I mean, I'm struggling to find money for the tooth fairy these days.
Oh, I didn't even think about a tooth fairy.
Exactly.
Yeah, wow, we need to get that tooth fairy cash.
And trust me, if you forget that cash, you're a pretty bad parent.
Yeah. That's it's not like the car guard you can kind of sneak away from.
Exactly.
Your kids you can't.
No.
But something to also think about there, I'm also a cashless type of person. You know, I don't even carry. I have my license in my phone now because I don't even have a wallet.
Right.
I'm waiting for the next, for licenses to actually be able to be a digital wallet as well. But just on the car guard and the tipping and stuff, we have to remember where South Africa is. You know, now, for example, it happened to Pierre the other day where he wanted to tip the car guard, doesn't have cash. So what's the next thing? An e-wallet. There's no number. He
couldn't remember his phone number.
Oh,
so I wanted to text him money that he can then withdraw from the ATM.
Yes.
But he couldn't even remember his own cell phone number. So he had to call his friend and ask for his mobile number. There are these dynamics that, still challenge the lower end of the market in terms of how do they accept digital payments.
Yeah.
And ironically, that's who would benefit most from it, right?
So that's exactly.
If street vendors, taxis. Imagine if every taxi street vendor would be able to receive cashless payments from a security point of view, it's life altering.
Exactly.
So what's our problem? Why aren't we there in South Africa yet?
So I think all of this is underpinned by technology.
Okay.
And so we've all got smartphones in our pocket, all of us in this room, but not everybody in the country. Okay. So a lot of people are still at that development stage where they're using feature phones. It's literally a telephone. So it hasn't it's not an Android-based device. It's not an Apple device. So it doesn't have all the features that we've come to know and love over the past 20 years in terms of apps. And so I think a lot of the technology we use is powered by these mobile apps, mobile money, etc., all these digital wallets. And so I think for them, cash is the next best alternative, unless they're using things like M-Pesa, which is mobile money, which is effectively a mobile balance linked to your cell phone account.
Okay.
And then you can send money, virtual money, from mobile number to mobile number. And that kind of transcends past that smartphone phase back to the feature phones. And so it's really, you can use a prompt-driven approach, menus to send money.
With these systems, are the funds received immediately? Because I would imagine that's also, I know with credit card payments through other systems, it can take a day or two.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is instant, and it's the whole beauty of having these wallets. And things like the mechanism of paying, or to be able to, if you want to receive money, to be able to display a QR code, and the person who wants to pay to be able to scan that QR code, and the money to be transferred immediately.
Right.
which is exactly the feeling you get when you hand cash. Sometimes, as you mentioned, with the credit card, it can
And
take a
people
day.
need it. People
Right.
they can't afford to wait
Right.
2 days and have a certain amount deducted
Exactly.
by the time they get their
So
payment.
a lot of in the small businesses when they need to go and replenish their store, they need the funds that they actually that they earned on that day. So something like a wallet or something where they can receive the money and even pay other businesses through this wallet is something that is extremely beneficial.
So, Jonathan, if I can ask you, is this SoftPOS technology that we're talking about?
So this is not directly SoftPOS. So SoftPOS would be the technology that enables or allows you to turn your mobile device or a device into a point of sale device.
So is that what we're talking about when we talk about
wallets.
SoftPOS technology? Is that taking your cell phone and converting that into a point of sale?
So yes, it's turning your mobile device into a point of sale. It's not necessarily like a wallet itself.
No, I'm getting that.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand the landscape and the words we use, because you guys might live in a world, and to some extent I do as well, where these terms are thrown around all the time, but not everybody knows.
It's so interesting because even through SoftPOS, the whole what I found extremely interesting about the whole name is it started with MPOS. And like a mobile point of sale device, which was what we know is like a like Yoko or a Corker, the actual
one of the more traditional
card machines, as we call them.
Right.
Okay. Yes.
And it, like transferring or evolving into a SoftPOS. But now what's even more interesting is the different names around, because even a SoftPOS is like soft point of sale device, and the way it's like changed now to like tap on phone, for example.
Right.
But now tap on phone can be it's pretty confusing between tap to pay.
Yes, what's
the difference of tap on?
Right. Am I using my credit card to tap a phone, or my phone to tap a machine?
Correct.
And with Apple coming into it now, it's tap to pay on iPhone. So you've got, so
I need more coffee.
And and so all these names, it's SoftPOS, tap to pay on iPhone. It becomes
well, maybe because it's new. I'd imagine everybody's throwing around terms, and some of the terms are going to stick along the way, and some aren't. I imagine.
And so when we describe SoftPOS to people, they go, "But isn't that Apple Pay?"
Right.
And so that's the conception, that why are you doing this thing that's existed like Apple Pay or Samsung Pay, which are digital wallets, which is essentially you've loaded a virtual card into a wallet that you can use your phone to make payments.
But this is actually the receipt.
This is the reverse, right? So this is there are two parties to every transaction. The one that makes the payment and the one that receives. So effectively, SoftPOS is addressing that gap of how do you receive card payments easily without all the additional hardware and other factors needed to essentially do that.
Right. In other words, it gives any person the ability to become a vendor just using their cell phone.
Exactly.
So it gives them tremendous flexibility.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. And how far are we with that technology in South Africa?
Good question.
Yeah. So look, I mean, it's been in market for over 3 years now. We were, part of an initial launch with Nedbank. So Synthesis developing Halo Dot.
Right.
And so in June 2020, at the peak of COVID, I would say, launched essentially a product with Nedbank under their brand Pocket POS to turn mobile phones into this point of sale. We have seen strong growth, from the Nedbank project, but widespread adoption is still low. And why is that? We've done some research, so it's not just our assumptions. We've needed to go down to street level and actually interview people and ask people that are doing small purchases every day and running small businesses. And essentially what we find is that there's a strong preference for cash. Okay.
So interesting.
And it's counterintuitive to what you and I
would have
think.
assumed exactly the opposite.
And so when you dig deeper and you find out, why does the small vendor on the street still want to accept cash? Well, firstly, his customers are paying cash and they're not asking to pay with a card. So they're not creating the demand for him to have a card machine.
Right.
But then separately, as Jonathan mentioned, when they need to go buy their supplies,
if there's a delay, there's a problem.
So that's the one factor, is the concept of settlement. But a bigger factor is their suppliers are demanding cash as well.
So in other words, the whole ecosystem,
It's circular.
There's certain ecosystems that are still cash reliant.
Exactly.
And until one point of that ecosystem changes, it remains the circle of cash.
Exactly. So it's a completely circular system, and it's difficult to break that momentum. So whilst our technology is there and it's fantastic and it's got all these benefits that we can obviously discuss, it's not just for a single technology provider like us to do. It's a whole behavioral change of an economy.
It's and cultural change.
Cultural change, all of that.
Because those are the people traveling to and from work might be happier not to have cash on them. The taxi drivers, for them, it could be a much quicker system, not having to give change. And those could be the same people that ultimately will go and buy something from a street vendor if they, land up at work and just want to pick something up. Is that how behavior will change? Do you think? I mean, it's just a thought.
So this is, again, I would probably say this is my opinion to it. So we speak about adoption of SoftPOS, but I think at this stage we're still at the access to this type of technology.
Right.
And in other, I think that's why the numbers are low, because it's a lot of these types of things are being figured out. So if we use your example about taxis at this point, a lot of the people who are using the taxi services often either don't have a device, like an NFC enabled device, which might be a
barrier.
A barrier, like a barrier to entry. I think also when it comes to trust, it's something at this stage.
It's a trust issue.
Yeah.
As
So
well.
if you ask,
because cash, there's nothing to trust. You see it, you're holding it, you got it.
I think it's also like the now and where we're going to go. So what I mean by that is, at the moment, it does seem like it's a barrier to entry. Cash is king, or and we have all of those things.
Cash still king? I mean, I know that used to be our thing. Maybe
it's
you're
still,
saying within a large part of the South African society, cash still is king,
right? Because what I want to say is, the same way we used to have digital cameras,
yes,
right, and that's now been and that's in a mobile device. The same way we have a Garmin. And TomTom, and now that's in your device.
Yeah,
I think inevitably, regardless on where we're at now, inevitably we will see, merchants or taxis receiving money on their mobile device, whether it's through wallets, whether
it's going to happen. There's little doubt. There is little doubt.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's I think just where we're at. I think just to close off the point about trust is. When Uber first came out, when I downloaded an app that a driver, a stranger, would pick me up. I mean, I was taught as a kid, do not speak to strangers, never mind get into a car with a stranger, right? And now it's synonymous when you say an Uber, it's synonymous with a taxi. Yeah. So I'm going to Uber there, right? So I think it is just something that is...
And it stores your credit card. It's got all of your details.
Of course. And
knows where you live.
Knows where you live.
Yeah, exactly. You only, you're not only trusting the driver, you're trusting the whole platform.
The whole system, yeah.
So yes, I think to go back to your taxi example, where we at now, it seems like it's not inevitably in the near future, but I think the technology is definitely there to make this happen.
Yeah. And I can see it. I mean, it totally democratizes payments. It allows people to scale on a different level.
Of course.
For me, I would imagine the safety and security aspect, that people aren't walking around with cash at all levels. I think would imagine, and not just in South Africa, but if you just look at the whole of Africa, how's this happening around the world? I mean, where are we compared to the rest of the world?
Yeah, so we very cash heavy. I think comparable markets in Europe would be Germany, but then just across the border, you've got the Scandinavian countries like Sweden that are completely cashless. Everything's digital.
Right.
Like, I don't think people have drawn money out of the ATMs for the last 3 years because no one's got a need for it. Just everything is digital. So it's a highly developed market. high trust as well, right? So people trust in the government services, they trust in the day-to-day interactions they've got.
There.
So they're not as targeted by fraud.
Yeah.
Whereas we are high fraud
Skeptical or
market,
cynical,
right? So there's always scams
yeah.
here. So people are always skeptical about saying, well, I'm going to tap my card on your phone now to make a payment, but are you taking a photo of my card at the same time? Like
So
that wouldn't
yeah.
cross anyone's mind in Sweden,
Right.
because they're never targeted with fraud. I mean, Germany is an example.
No wonder they're one of the happiest countries in the world. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And Germany as an example, they've got chip and pin cards,
Yes.
but they don't enforce the pin because there's just no fraud. So you can swipe your card still, and that's
so
acceptable.
Boring. Imagine living in a society like that. No, I'm joking. I think that is incredible. So let's just get back to understand. I mean, Halo Dot is focused on this. This is where are we with the development of technology with Halo Dot? What does Halo Dot allow us to do from a tech perspective, John?
Cool. So from a tech perspective, it's the technology that will turn the device into a point of sale device. And what does that mean? To be able to receive or to be able to, for a credit card, a physical card or a digital wallet to be tapped on the receiving device to receive the credit card payment.
Right. So can I just stop there? So I've got a home bakery, a home, whatever it would be, a cottage industry. I don't need to go through to get a traditional point of sale.
Right.
I can take my phone and a customer can tap their card on my phone, and it's as simple as that.
Correct.
Okay. It's incredible, though.
Yeah.
So
I mean, touch on the actual, the technology
Sure. So maybe just
transfer.
the benefit.
Not too heavy tech,
Yeah.
but give us the idea of what's behind
Sure. So
it.
obviously the benefits are obviously you can download instantly and start accepting payments.
Yes.
And it's a pay-per-use model, right? So you're not paying for it. There's no upfront investment.
Okay.
If you're not using it, you're not paying. So it really suits the business's needs. So when you do need to accept that payment, you incur the cost, otherwise not. So those are the more tangible sort of benefits for people. In terms of the technology, I think it's available. It's now in different form factors. So how do we make this more accessible to different types of customers? Not only mom and pops type of shops, how do we make it available to fintech developers that have got very rich functional apps that perform a particular function, whether it's in events or entertainment or whatever it is, and they're not payment experts.
Right.
How do we then give them some tools to build in an embedded payment experience that's great and seamless? And so our focus now is around packaging the technology for different customer profiles so they can use it effectively and easily
Within their own systems.
in their own system. So they don't need to
very exciting.
direct you to a different application. Essentially, they can either embed it directly into an existing app or have some sort of app-to-app integration. And so I think this is where we see the real democratization of it happening is through developers,
That's so
these builders.
Yeah.
So it's not that we trying to sell to every small business out there. There are solution providers already servicing those
doing
guys.
that.
So
Right.
how do we help them service the end merchant better?
It's really about the developer experience, right? The developer experience of them interacting with our technology.
Yeah,
So-
very interesting. We are running out of time. Jonathan, what excites you most about this space?
So I would say for me personally, as I mentioned, I don't carry a card, and I think the whole
You don't carry card or cash.
right. I don't carry cash. So I think that it's the beginning of this cashless of a cashless solution. For me, the ability to see these merchants, to offer an additional like payment method. So for example, payment on delivery, you don't the person delivering your package doesn't need to come with a terminal.
Yeah.
Because they have their phone that's got their map and then their details, and then they got a terminal that's clunky that's completely disconnected.
Yeah.
And now we can offer something that's going to make this a lot easier for them. I also think something that excites me is Apple really releasing and making it available for third parties now, because as we've seen with Apple Pay, when I
when
think Apple does right.
It does change behavior.
I think trust and Apple users trust Apple. So when Apple have Apple Pay and now it's tap to pay on iPhone, it's going to change the game. They predict from at the moment I think there's like a million like merchants, and Apple say by 2027 they want 37 million merchants. So it's exciting. That's I think
tremendous.
Exciting.
Absolutely amazing. Pierre, your view on how long, do you agree that there's going to be, although adoption might have been slow, do you think we'll see this exponential, almost tipping point, I guess, that's reached?
Certainly. I think there's been ambiguity in the market for the last couple of years because there hasn't been a global standard that endorses this type of technology. As of November last year, that has been finalized. So there is a global standard now. So I think once people certify their products against this PCI MPOC standard, essentially that validates that the technology is fit for scale. And so that's the one factor. The other factor is how do we get this into as many pay points as possible? And so commercially, it's got to make sense. It's got to be better than the hardware that's in market today. And it's got to provide some other richness, right? So it can't just be a one-trick pony. It's got to have some other embedded payment experiences. How do you embed things like instant payments into that, cross-border payments, peer-to-peer payments? So I think the richness will come that, yes, it's one mode of transacting on a phone, but as you layer the different payment methods, it's going to add so much value to everyone.
Incredible. I'd love your thoughts. Put your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Do you carry cash? Are you still carrying a card? Because that seems to be the next step, that people aren't even carrying cards anymore. And what do you think the resistance to change is in this space? Share it. Share your thoughts with us. We would love to hear from you. Let us know as well what other topics you'd like us to discuss in terms of technology and how it impacts on society, so that here at Synthesis TV, we can try and offer what you need. I'm Howard Feldman. This has been an episode of Synthesis TV. Have a great day.